Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best this Christmas? Now you can, with the world's softest pajamas by Pajamagram. Created by a team of pajama experts, the world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny, like cashmere, only better. She'll love how heavenly they feel. Includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So visit pajamagram.com or call 1-800-GIVE-PJs.
This is the Locker Room Podcast.
I am Geoff Schwartz, 8-year NFL offensive lineman. Glad to have our baseball expert, Danny Graves, on with me tonight. 11-year pitcher in Major League Baseball. You can find me at Twitter at Geoff Schwartz, Jeff with a G, Geoffschwartz, and Danny at DGravy32. What's going on, Danny?
Man, I'm just so excited. That music, that intro right there for the Dodgers Astros just got me pumped up. I was falling asleep because it's getting late, but that just got me going again. It's how exciting, right?
Oh, this is the World Series coming up on Tuesday. I mean, it can't get better for you.
Oh gosh, this is as a player, this is what we all played for, the World Series. And since I never had a chance to get there, obviously now not playing, I look forward to this week more than anything because this is the two best teams in the league, and actually they are the two best teams, and not just a wild card here, wild card there. These are the two best teams in my opinion, and they have been for a long time this year.
Well, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We're going to start with baseball because we got you in here, and I love talking baseball. I don't do it very often, so I love talking with you. Played 11 years. You know all the ins and outs about baseball. Both teams won 100 games. First time since 1970. We have two World Series teams with 100 wins. So we talk about pressure in these situations, right? People like dissecting which team has the most pressure. But with both teams winning 100 games, is there really a team that has pressure in this World Series?
Well, first, that's remarkable that this is the first time since 1970 that both teams have 100 wins, 100-plus wins. I would have thought it would have been a little more frequent than that. But, I mean, that just shows you how hard it is to win 100 games, I guess, in Major League Baseball. Now, and we talk about the pressure, yeah, both these teams are the best teams in baseball, but if we want to have a little bit of pressure on somebody, it's got to be the Dodgers, in my opinion, because of their payroll. And that's, if they lose, that's what everybody's going to talk about. I think they're going to bring up that they spend all this money to buy a championship and then they don't win the championship. Prior to this year, the beginning of the season, opening day, $242 million was their payroll, as opposed to the Astros, who were 18th, which is $124 million. Both of them is a ton of money, obviously, but I'm telling you, the Dodgers, they used to talk about it with the Yankees all the time. They go out and buy championships and spend all this money, and then when they don't win, people are all over them. So that's my only reason to say that the Dodgers have a little bit of pressure on them.
Do you think there's specific pressure on Clayton Kershaw? You know, in previous postseasons, he's had some issues, especially getting in the third time in the round of the order. The seventh inning kind of is his sweet spot where teams kind of get to him. He's got to be feeling a little bit of pressure, right? Starting game one at home against the Astros. He's waited his whole career for this opportunity.
Right. You know, I think some of the baseball writers and the baseball media will try to throw that added pressure onto him, and some of the people all over Twitter, social media will throw that pressure on him. But here's the thing, Jeff, and you know, we can get more into this later on when we talk to Rod Dibble, but the Dodgers bullpen is so good right now. They didn't give up a single run to the Cubs in the NLCS. They gave up 3 hits in like 17 innings. So Clayton Kershaw doesn't have to face a lineup 3 or 4 times like he used to when he would get in trouble in the playoffs. So, you know, the way that Dave Roberts is running this bullpen right now, starters, including Clayton Kershaw, go 5 or 6 innings, then hand it over to the bullpen. So I'm not really fond of the method. Just because I like starters going deeper into the game. But if it's working, why not keep going with it? And Dave Roberts has been pushing the right buttons, getting these starters the ball to the relievers. So I really don't think there's any pressure on Kershaw.
For those who aren't aware, what makes the Dodgers bullpen so special?
You know, I've been trying to dissect them more and more. And of course, we know Kenley Jansen. What is so good about him is he's a one-pitch pitcher. He throws a cutter, mid-90s to upper 90s, but he throws it in all quadrants of the strike zone. So he's, you know, down and into righty, up and in, down and into lefty, up and in. He can hit any spot with his cutter.
It's
so
almost
he's
like
proven.
It's almost like Rivera, right? Mario Rivera with that.
Yeah,
I think that's what he is. A little bit. Throws a little harder than him. Is correct?
Yeah, and I think he's a little more intimidating because Mariano Rivera was always just this nice guy looking clean cut out there on the mound. Right. And Kenley's just this big monster that just brings the heat to you. So Kenley's a little more intimidating, but, I think he's got a long way to go to really be compared to Mariano. And I think he would tell you the same thing. Mariano did this for a lot of years, and he won a lot of championships. But I think not only Kenley Jansen, but Brandon Morrow, who actually was drafted – 2 draft picks ahead of Clayton Kershaw back in, I think it was 2011 when they got drafted. He has been lights out being the setup guy, the 7th or 8th inning guy to get the ball to Jansen. He throws 99 to 100 miles an hour, and his ball is kind of, when it comes out of his hand, it reads 99, but it has that little bit of extra giddy up on the end of it when it gets to the plate. So I think he's been a huge blessing. Kenta Maeda went from the rotation into the bullpen during the playoffs, and he's added a few ticks, miles per hour to his fastball. And then you get the 2 lefties that they traded for, Tony Cingrani and Tony Watson. They've been remarkable, too, in these playoffs. So it's kind of like Dave Roberts. It's a big problem to have. He's got too many guys to go to that are pitching very well right now, So, yeah. I mean, I would love to have that problem if I was a manager or pitching coach, but right now it's about, mixing and matching and getting the right matchups with these guys to have success.
You're listening to The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. I want to talk about 3 Dodgers hitters. Chris Taylor, Justin Turner, Yasiel Puig all have a playoff OPS above 1,000. How do the Astros pitchers get these guys out? I mean, that has to be a key to the Astros winning this series.
Well, I think with Justin Turner, first of all, this guy is probably hotter than anybody in all of baseball right now during the postseason, especially with runners on base. They can't get him out. It's ridiculous. He covers the plate so much, and he doesn't chase pitches too often out of the strike zone, and he makes you work. And, he's very patient at the plate. As far as Chris Taylor, I think he has holes, but you got to find him. I think these pitchers need to throw inside a little bit more to him because as a leadoff hitter, he takes a huge, huge hack, but he makes contact. But if you get him feeling a little uncomfortable at the plate, maybe he won't take such a big hack. And Puig, who knows with Puig, man? There's just times that Puig is on fire, and you can throw him pitches out of the strike zone, he still hits it. And then there's times that he's in a slump, and you can throw it right down the middle, and he won't touch it. So if you can get by these guys with minimal damage, and Clay Bellinger included, I think the bottom of the order, the middle to the bottom of the order is hit or miss. They're not anything too scary in my opinion, So they're guys that could get on base, but guys that aren't really going to hurt you with the one swing of the bat.
Who do you think the DH favors in the World Series? I don't. Does it typically favor the NL team, the AL team? I got to think the NL team gets an extra bat when they normally don't get it on the road.
Yeah, I do think it's the NL team that is favored. Unless you have a David Ortiz that's still playing and he's your DH on the American League side.
Right.
He's just not going to be able to play unless he plays first base when they're in National League Park. But right now, who the Astros use as a DH generally is either Evan Gattis, a backup catcher, or Carlos Beltran. So you got to pick your poison. What do you want to do? Do you want to waste your backup catcher, put him in as a DH, or do you want to save him for a backup catcher? There's so many questions there when you're an American League team playing in a National League Park. So I definitely think that it favors the Dodgers, the National League team, especially if Corey Seager is going to be healthy enough to hit but not play in the field.
That's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network. Coming up next, same teams, different game, same outcome. That's next. You're listening to The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Super Bowl 51 rematch tonight. Did not go well for the Falcons again. They lose 23-7 to New England in Foxborough. Entering the game tonight, New England had allowed 6 straight 300-yard passers. Tonight, they shut down Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, 23 of 33 for 233 yards with 1 late touchdown to Julio Jones. Falcons team rushing 120 yards, but too little too late for them. New England's offense rolling along, a couple bad penalties, still very efficient. Now New England 5-2. Pittsburgh Steelers 5-2. They look like maybe the front runners in the AFC along with the Chiefs. The Falcons now 3-3, coming after a terrible loss to Miami as well last week. Falcons are sputtering in the NFC South. Panthers sputtering a little bit in the NFC South. Saints sputtering, and the Tampa Bay Bucks are sputtering. Danny, you watched this game tonight. How surprising was it to see Atlanta really struggle on offense?
Well, see, that's the thing. I watched this game pretty close because I had Devontae Freeman on my fantasy team, and I thought he was going to run all over the Patriots tonight. And I thought Matt Ryan was going to throw all over the Patriots, but somehow they decided to play defense today. So it was very shocking to me. But, talking to you, Geoff, before the show started, it's all about their offensive coordinator not being there anymore, right? I mean, to me, this is not the same Matt Ryan that I watched last year. An outsider, I automatically think something's wrong with Matt Ryan. But you being on the inside says no, it has a lot more to do with than just Matt Ryan.
Yeah, so the Falcons lost actually both their coordinators from last year on defense. Now, head coach Dan Quinn came from Seattle. He actually took over the defense a little bit last year in the middle of the year when they were struggling. They were really young, had some young pieces. They played better. They played a little bit better this season as well. But on offense, Kyle Shanahan, stud offensive coordinator, did great job in Washington and Cleveland, comes over to Atlanta. Matt Ryan has his best season. The offense is one of the best of all time in the top 10, I'd say. He goes to San Francisco. Steve Sarkisian, the USC head coach, he was in Alabama last year as the OC, becomes the OC this year. And you're just not seeing the same fluidity in the offense. The offense last year was based a lot on tight end motions and shifts, big plays, home run type play action plays, zone running scheme, and you're just not seeing the action in the backfield like last season. They're not utilizing the tight ends as much. And having you in tonight, this kind of jogged my mind a little bit. So I think that NFL coaches, out of all the major sports, are most important to success of a team. And we see it all the time with a head coach in Bill Belichick, with a poor head coach at certain places. With you look at the Rams with Sean McVay coming in, working with Jared Goff, versus Jeff Fisher working with Jared Goff. So how important is a manager or a pitching coach or a hitting coach to a baseball team?
Well, I think it does start with the head coach in baseball, even though he doesn't work particularly with the hitters or with just the pitchers, but he's managing personalities on the team, and he's trying to get these guys to play with confidence and try to play to the best of their abilities and not feel that added pressure that Major League Baseball brings. And an example that I can think of is look at the Chicago Cubs. Before they traded for Joe Madden, the year before that, before he came in, they won 66 games, I believe. They didn't even win 70 games. Rick Renteria ends up getting fired. They bring Joe Madden in. They win over 90 games. They go to the playoffs and lose in the NLCS. So I know they added a couple guys, but they had the majority of the same team. And it's all about what Joe Madden did to the atmosphere of that team. I think he brought a lot of extra confidence, and by letting guys dress up in certain themes on plane rides, whereas it used to be everybody wears suits and ties and you got to be all proper when you get on the plane. Right. Well, Joe Madden has changed that. He lets these guys wear outfits and costumes and just trying to have fun. And we see that every year that Joe Madden's been there, they've been to the playoffs. So I think that has a lot to do with. The manager has a lot to do with guys feeling comfortable, and you play better when you're comfortable, obviously.
Oh, of course you do. And tonight's game was also odd because of heavy fog. So it got to a certain point where they couldn't even use the cameras up high. I'm sure the offensive coaches couldn't see, or defense coaches couldn't see downstairs. They used the Skycam, which was actually really cool. It's kind of that all-22 look, kind of a Madden look. I know a lot of fans watching the game voiced their pleasure on Twitter. But here's Rob Gronkowski talking about the difficulties of playing in the heavy fog.
Yeah, that fog was pretty crazy. I mean, I never seen anything like that or play in any fog like that. But I mean, a deep ball up in the air, was definitely more difficult than no fog. But I mean, it didn't change anything in the game.
So basically, it was fun to play in, but didn't really matter at all. I've actually played in two games. Rob Gronkowski with the great bite as usual. I actually played in 2 games. In one in high school and actually a baseball game in the fog that had 3 fog delays. We couldn't even see the ball get hit. It would just get hit and you don't even know where it landed. But more important to this game, I played one in college in football. We were playing Oregon State in our Civil War, went to Oregon, and the fog got so bad that the coaches just came downstairs for the second half. They couldn't see. They couldn't see. The camera angles were only on the field, so whatever handheld cameras they used were the ones that we had to use for basically film as well, and what was shown on the TV copy. You literally couldn't see anything, and so it was a surreal experience. Now, we won the game 56-14. It was really fun. It was actually, how about this? It was the first time, so Oregon football is known for their uniforms. Mm-hmm. It was the first time, to my knowledge, the college football team had come out in a different uniform and switched come out in warm-ups with a different color uniform and then switch to a different uniform to start the game. So we came out in yellow to warm up in. We came back in, we threw off our shoulder pads, put our normal shoulder pads on, put some new pants on, and came out in black uniforms. How awesome was that?
Was that planned?
Yeah, it was the first time. It was Civil War. We came out with these now. The uniforms are super ugly. Bilotti Bold was Mike Bilotti was head coach, and Bilotti Bold was the font of the uniform. It was super ugly. It was supposed to be futuristic. Now we ditched that for better black uniforms next year, but it really fired up the crowd. Now they couldn't see in the second half, but it was fun nonetheless.
They probably had a better chance to see the black uniforms though, right?
Well, I think we had bright, shiny numbers, which helped a little bit. Oregon's going to be a little excessive. It's really funny watching these college football games now, and all these teams with this, crazy trend of all these uniforms. Knowing that when I was at Oregon, we really started this. We had
for sure.
We and people now that I live in the South, people in the South, I wear an Oregon shirt. They say uniforms, like that. We're now known for uniforms, and it's something that we should be proud of because that's how we've gotten a lot of recruits.
Yeah, you guys were honestly the only ones that was doing that back in the day. Like nobody else was changing uniforms. It was a home jersey and a road jersey, and you guys would have a different one every week. And I think as a college football fan, people loved seeing that. They loved to see what kind of outfits y'all were going to wear for the next week. I think it was great.
Oh, I loved it as a player. I know recruits really love it. So Coming up next, injuries strike again and a streak is over. We'll delve into that next. It's Geoff Schwartz and Danny Graves on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Another week of NFL action, another week where NFL starters are getting injured. Big list. Arizona Cardinals quarterback Carson Palmer suffered a broken left arm in the second quarter against the Rams in London. He will have surgery, expected to be out about 8 weeks. This actually might be good for them. They need to get into a rebuild mode, and maybe this forces them a little bit faster to get into that mode after getting shut out today in London. Miami Dolphins quarterback Jay Cutler potentially suffered a cracked rib against the Jets. Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Mike Wallace had a terrible concussion today. We got Colts rookie safety, first-round draft pick Malik Hooker tore his ACL and MCL. And lastly, this is not funny, but ended up actually providing some entertainment. Cowboys kicker Dan Bailey suffered a groin injury in their rout of the Niners and did not return. So safety Jeff Heath ended up kicking an extra point for them and kicking off. I know you saw this, Danny. What did you think when you saw the video of a safety attempting a PAT and a kickoff?
Well, first, let me just say that I dropped Dan Bailey off my fantasy team last week. So this is like perfect timing. And not to laugh about somebody getting hurt, obviously, but I mean, for Jeff Heath, this had to have been such a huge, huge moment of his NFL career because speaking from as a baseball player, this is the equivalent to a position player getting to pitch because, position players always want to pitch. If it's a blowout, they think they can get 3 outs like it's something easy to do. They think it's easy to throw strikes. So they finally get to go out there and do it. And I think Jeff Heath saw how tough it is to kick that extra point. It hit off the goalpost and went in, but, I mean, the joy on him, on his face and his team was remarkable. I thought it was great. Great for football.
I will say that the only time we ever envy kickers is, quite honestly, when training camp rolls around because you see them off to the side standing there. They got their hat on. Some days they don't even wear their cleats because it's not their kicking day. But I don't think any of us actually want to kick. As a pitcher, did you ever want to be a hitter?
Only in batting practice.
Never in a game.
No, I hated hitting in a game because the guys threw too hard. I didn't like it. I did not like it. I was not a contact guy. I accidentally hit a couple home runs and had a few hits here and there, but it was not because I knew how to hit. It was just, the bat found the ball. But, I think batting practice is the only time that pitchers really want to hit because you can swing as hard as you can.
No fear.
But
no
position
fear
players always want to pitch, though.
Of course they do. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. We'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal, even if it's not with us, saving you time and money. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today. So, as an offensive lineman, Joe Thomas is one of the best to play his position at left tackle. He was my brother's mentor when he got to Cleveland. My brother is now the right tackle for the Chiefs, number 71, Mitchell Schwartz. He was a mentor to my brother, so I really appreciate Joe for that. And Joe had a remarkable streak going into today's game. He had played 10,363 snaps in a row. And just to talk about how hard that is, it's if you bust a shoe, you have to use the restroom. I had a teammate one time who missed one snap in a season because he was too late coming back from using the restroom. Going number 2, you can go number 1 on the sidelines. He was too late coming back from that. You have a uniform malfunction. Your clip pops off your helmet. There's so many ways to miss one snap. For him to have that streak is just so remarkable. And I think it's tough for people to understand. And here's Joe Thomas talking about the play where he got hurt.
Just routine run play. I mean, I've done it a million times where you're just blocking a guy and you go to try to finish him and get one last shove, one last push, and you just felt something unnatural in your arm.
So in the NFL, when you get hurt, you can walk off the field and come back the next play. But if a trainer comes out to see you, you have to take a play off. So as soon as the trainer came out, Joe was guaranteed to miss a snap. However, if the Browns would have used a timeout in a close game, which would not have made sense, he could come back in the next play. But clearly, he's holding his arm. He has a tricep injury. He'll get an MRI today. He tweeted about that as well. Here's Joe Thomas's reaction to his streak being over.
Obviously, it's difficult because it's so soon after the injury, but definitely proud of the number of plays I was able to put together, getting over that 10,000 milestone and going into my 11th season without missing a play is something that I always feel like I'll be able to hang my hat on and I can have pride in. But it's a violent game, and those type of streaks, they always are going to come to an end. It wasn't an infinity streak. There was certainly going to be a time where either because of injury or just lack of production that it was going to end. So I think I was enough of a realist to understand that I wasn't going to be able to continue on forever without missing a play, and it was just a matter of time. And unfortunately, it happened in Week 7 when I wish I could have been out there to help my teammates, but it's football and those things happen.
So Joe, like he says, in his 11th season, he's actually only won 48 games in his entire career for the Cleveland Browns, which is really miserable. And credit him as well for not ever wanting to come out of games. However, they did try to take him out one time in a blowout. And here's Andrew Hawkins, who played with Joe in Cleveland. Here he is talking for Operation Football.
Real quick story. I can remember one game. It was late in the game. We had just, I think, Pettin's first year as our coach and Kyle Shanahan. And it was late in the game. We're winning. And, it's coach's philosophy to get your best guys out if the game is handled, not to risk injury. And a rookie offensive tackle runs onto the field to pull Thomas out of the game late in the fourth quarter. And Thomas, looks at him like, what the heck are you doing in here? Get off of the field. Sends him off of the field. The coach is, starting to get it. They had to explain to the coach, hey, no. He doesn't miss a snap. Joe doesn't come out of the game. And, it's just a tribute to the kind of person he is, man.
That was one of the few times the Browns were really ahead in a game when my brother was there for 4 years. I think they were up 30-3. They even asked my brother to come out, who chose not to come out. He actually is unofficially now in the lead for consecutive snaps. He has over 5,000 now. Danny, when you hear about Joe Thomas and the snap streak, what does this bring to mind for you?
Well, first of all, that almost doesn't sound real. That is remarkable what he was able to do. You mentioned all the little things that could have happened for a guy to miss one snap, and he didn't miss any of them for over 10,000 of them. Yep. That seems just ridiculous, and kudos to him. And he's got such a great attitude after the fact. It doesn't seem to bother him too much. But to stay in and blow out games, I think that's amazing. But to me, the only thing I can think of is Cal Ripken. Cal Ripken Jr., his streak of consecutive games in Major League Baseball, same thing. Anything could have happened. He could have tweaked a hammy. He could have been sick, or, guys have the flu and they miss games. But to miss a snap, I don't know. I can't fathom that, Geoff. That's remarkable that he was able to go that long.
As someone who's been injured quite often, unfortunately, it is so easy to even get hurt. And Joe's played through MCL strains, PCL strains, LCL strains, sprained ankles, a bum shoulder. I mean, you're able to play through a lot of things. Unfortunately, I broke my leg twice. I can't play through that, and I've had other surgeries here and there. So I just think that some players just have a little bit of luck as well, right? I mean, Joe is such a talented football player. It's hard to explain. And I played with a couple Hall of Famers, especially a running back. I played with Adrian Peterson. I played with Steve Smith at wide receiver. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Jamal Charles has a chance to be a Hall of Famer. And I'm sure you played with a couple guys who will be Hall of Famers. Like, their talent level and their ability to recover game to game and week to week is just so much more extraordinary than a normal athlete or teammate.
Well, yeah, and that's what makes them as superior as they are. Because of that, and a lot of them didn't even have to do much to get back on the field. Their bodies just reacted better to certain injuries, or if one guy had this kind of injury and this superstar had the same thing, well, he's going to be back a lot sooner. For whatever reason that is, I have no idea, but I mean, it's a certain breed, right? I mean, it's a certain breed to be able to play professional sports, but then you have those certain guys that are just, unstoppable. And, obviously Joe Thomas was one of those.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
We talk a lot about, how sports can be really uplifting in times of need, times where people look to sports to kind of get away from other problems in life and other tragedies that happen in our country. We have 9/11. Mike Piazza hits a home run the first game back. The Yankees go to the World Series, end up losing to the Arizona Diamondbacks. We have Katrina with the Saints making a great run that year. The first game back in the Superdome, we all know Steve Gleason blocks that kick. That rejuvenated the entire city, having the Saints back. Now we turn to the Astros with Hurricane Harvey. I called a game this weekend for college football, UTSA against Rice, and 11 of Rice players, they are stationed in Houston, 11 of the players lost everything in the hurricane. They had over 30 players and coaches lose all their cars, and they really turned to football, to their teammates in a time of need. And now everyone's obviously settled back in and they're ready to go. But just talking to the players and hearing about how sports was really important to them in this time when they they need to turn to something. Danny, to you, what does the power of sports mean?
Well, I think these are times that you mentioned the athletes in whatever sport can take people's minds off of what's happening, the tragedies that are happening, and have a little bit of normalcy again, even if it's just for a few hours. And, when you were talking about Mike Piazza and Steve Gleason, and I started getting chills just thinking about those moments because I was part of those moments. I was, that's right. When I was a player, and to be able to go back onto the field and to just, whether it's 1,000 fans or if it's 50,000 fans, if somebody can smile that day because they're enjoying a professional baseball game, that makes you feel a little bit better. And, you talk about Katrina, in Houston, the tragedies in Houston with the hurricane. They have some guys on that team that are from Puerto Rico that are still dealing with the hurricanes from Puerto Rico too. Carlos Correa, Carlos Beltran, bench coach Alex Cora. All these guys are still trying to help down in Puerto Rico. And Enrique Hernandez with the Dodgers. There's so much going on in this world, but for baseball right now, to take their minds off of certain things, it's just such an honor to be able to do that. And I know these guys are thrilled to be able to do that as well.
Jeff Blum, Astros TV analyst and fellow co-host on The Locker Room on ESPN Radio, was with Jordan Fitz and talked about what this Houston Astros team can do for Houston.
These guys recognize that they have an opportunity to really, give them an alternate reality and something to cheer for that will take their minds off what the work is back at home. And, I really wish I was better at putting into words what it means to this city, but I had a chance these last couple of days to sit in the stands and talk with these people and be around them, and just the joy that is in the stands. And they even say, fan to fan, how much this means to the city. And it's just great to watch. And I truly hope that this is a great series, goes down to the wire, and that the Astros can pull it off. But what they've done so far has meant a tremendous amount to the fans at home.
For more perspective on the World Series, let's bring in 1990 World Series champion and host of the Rod Dibble Show on 97.9 ESPN in Hartford, Rod Dibble. Rob, you've been in this position before, a couple days before the first pitch of the World Series. Where do these guys go as they prepare to play on Tuesday?
You know what? Mentally, you're not really paying attention to too much other than this is probably the greatest moment of your life. And as an athlete, you've been waiting your whole life to play in a game like this. And so for some of these guys, there's guys that have played in it before, like a Chase Utley and Verlander and some guys like that. But for the Cody Bellingers and the George Springers and guys like that, they're kind of freaking out a little bit. They'd rather have these games start instead of waiting for Tuesday to come.
How on their toes do you think the managers are right now, Dibbs, especially with neither one of them ever being in the World Series? A.J. Hinch, really, he's a young guy at this job right now.
Well, A.J.'s the wild card because Dave Roberts, playing back with the Red Sox, probably has one of the greatest stolen bases of his life, to get them there against the Yankees. So, he's a guy that can talk to these guys and be like, guys, listen, this is something that, you got to want to be successful sometimes. There's some people that are afraid of success, and then there's other people you got to tell them, listen, you know what, you may never get back here again. And so, guys, I would rather have probably Chase Utley or Verlander talk to these guys and be like, you know what, you get very lucky in your life to be in situations like this. So I think if I were going to have guys stand up and speak right now, it would be those veteran players. Because the manager's really, like you said, Danny, A.J. Hinch, what's he going to tell these guys? He didn't play in the World Series. He definitely didn't, manage in the World Series. So you want other guys to lean on right now. But it's just baseball. I mean, for some of these guys, there's going to be crazy fans in L.A., crazy fans in Houston when they get there. But, man, this is the greatest moment of your life. And so you've got to want to embrace that instead of being afraid of it.
We always talk about pressure in these situations, but both teams won 100 games this year. Is there one team that has more pressure on them heading in the World Series?
I don't know. It's like Lou Piniella said, pressure is trying to feed a family of four. To me, I think the pressure is maybe if you put it on yourself, if you're Clayton Kershaw, that you haven't performed well in some postseason games. For maybe some other guys, if they're thinking about like a Justin Turner, all these, you don't want to think about the negatives. You want to think about what kind of season you've been having, what kind of role you've been on. The Dodgers have been kind of waiting around. I was there when the Detroit Tigers were waiting around and played St. Louis in the postseason and just got blown out. They made a lot of mental errors. So I think the one thing is you just want to try to be loose, have some fun, and whoever really scores first, I think it's going to be the best for them because it'll release, I guess, some of the nerves that they've been waiting around for this to happen. For Houston, they're getting out of an emotional series with the Yankees, Game 7. So they didn't even know if they were going to be here or not. For them, I think there's really no pressure on either team because, like you said, they both won over 100 games. They're two of the best teams in baseball. But, until you're in that situation and, you get all your tickets and you get all your passes and all that stuff ready and you actually get announced and stuff like that, you're not going to feel those jitters until you're standing on those baselines.
Well, speaking of pressure, Dibbs, you know this job very well, being a reliever for your whole career. Everybody's talking about the Dodgers bullpen, how great they've been. They're no nasty boys by all means. I'm always on your side with that. Don't worry about that. But they have been dirty. They have been unhittable. Is there any pressure on the Astros bullpen because they haven't been very good as of late?
They've been fantastic, man. I mean, the way I look at our bullpen 27 years ago is just that, I think we started something. I don't know if I love the formula of trying to go to your bullpen in these postseason games in the 5th or 6th inning, but, that's what you have. And, you've got some guys that are great bridges, the Brandon Morrows and some of these unsung heroes that the Dodgers have. They're going to get a chance to shine in these series because the game's changed. Danny, you and I, we'd be making $20 million a year.
Right? Yeah.
So, and I know. So the game has changed to where it's flip-flop to where, setup guys, closers are so, valuable now in the postseason. It's just basically Dave Roberts. He's got to know when to really, make that move to the bullpen and when to let, Kershaw go an extra hitter or let Rich Hill go an extra hitter. Yu Darvish and stuff like that. It's very difficult, I think, on these managers because the Dodgers have a way better bullpen than the Astros have. And so for the Astros, you're praying Keuchel can go 7, Verlander does another 7 or 8 innings in game 2. That's the kind of stuff right now for the managers that could be the difference between winning a world championship and losing one is when you pull the trigger and go to those great bullpens.
We're talking to Rod Dibble, World Series champion in 1990, Cincinnati Reds. Which team does the DH favor in this matchup?
Oh, man. I would say the Astros because they play with it all year, but you're also now getting a great hitter in there for the Dodgers. I would say it definitely it favors the Astros because it's more normal for them to have a DH in there and I guess Hinch to manage around it. But in some of these 7-game series, all of a sudden some guy could become a hero. Andre Ethier or Granderson or whoever you might throw out there as your DH. That's going to be a time for that guy, even Grandal, to shine and get 4 ABs where else he wouldn't be playing in a National League game. So I think it would favor, to start the series, with the Astros at home, but anything can happen in a 7-game series.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Rob. You can listen to Rob on ESPN Hartford. Have a good night and take care.
All right, guys. Be well.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Browns, Titans today, ugliest game of the weekend. 12-9 victory in overtime for the Titans. They look like they were sleepwalking. But DeShone Kizer, the second-round pick for the Browns, back in action today, back starting. Every week they seem to flip-flop. But he didn't finish the game. Through 2 early picks, Cody Kessler came in. That report started swirling about some Friday night activity with DeShone Kizer out Friday night. Here's Hugh Jackson, though, talking about pulling Kizer and reports of him being out on Friday night.
I can't worry about confidence. You guys keep talking about confidence. We're in the business of winning games. This is a performance-based business. If you turn the football over in the National Football League, you cannot play. Okay, it's just that simple. Everybody keeps talking about confidence. I'm not worried about confidence. I got 52 other guys in there to worry about their confidence and trying to win. Okay, so again, DeShone was playing really well up until we turned the ball over in the scoring zone. Okay, I left DeShone in the game, and here we come the second half. We turn the ball over again. Well, I'm looking at this game. This is a close game. We can manage and get the ball down the field. We got a chance to win. Well, I owe it to the other guys in that room. I'm not just worried about the quarterback. I know you guys are. I'm not. So however you take that, you take it. But my job is to put us and put people out there to give us the best chance to win. You're right. You said it. So that's the first I've heard of it. So appreciate you guys sharing that with me. Thank you.
Hugh Jackson, a little salty. He's now 1-22 as the Browns coach. Was 1-15 last year, now 0-7. He's feeling the heat a little bit. He keeps making these quarterback changes. But DeShone Kizer, second-round draft pick, was out at a bar, club, some sort of establishment Friday night into Saturday morning at 1 a.m. There's video of him being out. There seems to be an uproar over this behavior from the young quarterback. Remember, young quarterback, he's out legally, drinking, he's okay to do that. So our NFL schedule, by Friday night, if you don't have your game plan set mentally and physically for the game on Sunday, you have more issues than going out and having a good time. And the way typically the schedule works, Saturday is a very light day. So Friday night is used as a date night. So my wife and I would go out on Friday nights. Now we would be in bed by 10 o'clock. Let's say we're not the party animals, but guys go out. They have fun because Saturday they can recover and then Sunday they can play. And to me, I've always felt this way where guys can do whatever they want off the field as long as they perform on Sunday. And is DeShone Kizer being out on Saturday morning affecting his play come Sunday? I don't know. Some of the mistakes he makes doesn't really mean that he's out partying too much. And I know, Danny, you guys in baseball tend to maybe get after a little bit. How do you feel about Kizer and this whole situation of going out 2 days before a game?
Yeah, and sometimes baseball, when I played, we went after it a little too much at times. But, for Kizer, I don't think this should even be an issue. If he doesn't throw those 2 picks, as Hugh Jackson said, he was playing pretty well until those 2 picks. This should have nothing to do with what he did 2 nights ago, right? I mean,
I'm with you.
Does it really affect his play 2 days later? I mean, they don't even know if he was drinking, if he was what he was doing. They just saw him.
I think he was passed out at the bar, though. Would that change your mind?
No, that doesn't change my mind because he wasn't playing the next day.
Here is DeShone Kizer talking about the video of him at the bar on a Saturday morning, I should say.
Channel 19 has video of the bar on Friday nights or whatever, 1:30 in the morning and 9, just after showed the details. When I just asked you about it, he basically sounded surprised and said that's not what I would expect for DeShone at that hour of night on a Friday.
Yeah, I'm not here to talk about my personal life right now.
Well, we're Channel 19, so I'm going to follow up with it. Somebody sent me some video. So does it show a lack of, you're a rookie, you're trying to learn the playbook, you're trying to win a game.
I'm not here to talk about my personal life right now.
That doesn't show a lack of commitment to learning the job?
Absolutely not. I was out and was at the facility the next day, preparing for a game, was preparing for the game right before that. So once again, I'm not here to talk about my personal life.
This whole thing about studying your playbook drives me absolutely insane. Do they expect us to study our playbook 24/7?
Right.
He's a 21-year-old kid. It's Saturday morning at 1 a.m. What, are you ever allowed to have fun? I know they're struggling, right? But you at some point have to have fun.
And this reporter, does he not have days off and go and have fun on his days off? I mean, Kizer was off Friday night into Saturday morning. He wasn't working, right? He's allowed to have a life. It's ridiculous. But if he throws 3 touchdowns, it's not a big deal.
No, and that's what that's kind of my point about playing on Sunday. There's a lot of guys who get after it, I'm sure, in baseball the same way. But if you come prepared to play on game day, it's never going to be an issue until it becomes an issue.
Right. Exactly.
Thanks for listening to the Locker Room Podcast. Make sure to subscribe by clicking the Listen tab on the ESPN app.